It's 8:03 and we're starting this April 16th, 2025 meeting of the WCAC. I'm going to just do a quick, I guess, roll call just so we can all document that we are present. Let me just get started with who is on my immediate right. So Linda Ferrari,
Here.
Nicole Hammond,
Here.
Barbara Morse,
Here.
Anna Feldwig,
Here.
Allison Ailey,
Here, and I don't know why, but I can't hear very well. My volume's turned up. So just,
ooh, okay.
I'm here though.
Okay, I've got these headphones and hopefully I'm coming through okay. Is everyone else hearing me all right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Maybe just leave and come back, Allison.
If she can try that, that's true. All right, so John Cooley
I'm here.
and Greg Dorothy.
Here.
Awesome, great. All right, so let's see. We can get started immediately, and the purpose of tonight's meeting is basically to agree on our hopefully simple and also not overly numerous talking points about what our committee believes are the main points of how to integrate the MCI plans with West Concord Village. So you guys each, most folks sent me some ideas that you had thought about, and I tried to put them together in a spreadsheet and sort of group them by the main themes that I was seeing. And so I was hoping that we could look at this together and figure out like maybe which of these themes are most important, and then establish like a sentence or a couple of sentences on each one of these. And then that could become our talking points as we are going to the MCI public meetings, and then also talking to our friends and neighbors and basically anyone who will listen about what our input is on the MCI planning process. Does that sound like a good goal for tonight's meeting? Is that what you were expecting, I'm hoping? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to share my screen and we can look at this spreadsheet. And if you have not looked at it before, that is okay. I just sent it this morning. But I wanted to make sure that we were able to review this. So I think what I want to point out is that the general ideas that everyone submitted fell into a certain set of groups, I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different like sort of groupings. And I will say the green and blue space ideas all overlapped each other to a good extent and were the most numerous. And then I think the idea also of connectivity was pretty popular. And then the other ideas each usually had like between 1 and 4 people who were getting behind them. So I think like any of these ideas are certainly fair game for tonight, but I guess I just wanted to mention that yeah, the green and blue space and connectivity are ones that we should definitely spend some time on, and then maybe look at the other ones and see which others we would also want to promote. So with that, I'm going to just filter for green and blue space so we can take a look at all of that and see if there's maybe like a statement that we would want to develop from these different ideas. Trying to get this cut the right size here.
I mean, the green and blue spaces and the West Concord Greenway all kind of tie together. With the new thing being the Botanic Garden and a piece of the closed prison.
Yeah.
So maybe if we're going to go ahead with presenting the Greenway idea, we can just make sure that all of these things are touched upon in it.
Well, and if you think about the piece of land that was given to or sold for $1 to CHGC for housing and open space, there's a requirement there that the majority of the land be used for open space. And there was a task force or committee working on it at one point. You kind of wrap that into the whole thing. It also adds a piece to the same kinds of topics that we've been talking about.
Yeah. And that was called what, Junction Village again, Barbara? Is that right?
Say that again?
Was it
Yes,
called
it was.
Junction Village? That's
Yes.
the piece of property. Okay.
Well, what was going to be built there was going to be called Junction Village.
Okay.
So that's that little sort of dark piece right along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail that abuts the depot area.
Okay.
And it's on hold right now until they figure out what's going to go on with MCI Concord. But I
Yeah.
think if we're suggesting something that even ties in with a piece of what potentially was going to be happening there or needs to happen, this is written into the state law. It has to be only used for affordable housing and open space.
Oh,
It
that's
kind
good
of
to
gives
know.
them a
Okay.
way to segue into whatever might be going on at MCI as well.
Okay.
I was just going to ask, do we have any sort of town, as part of the town strategic plan or vision, when a new area is developed, a certain percentage of it needs to be open space? Like, I'm not, maybe there is such a thing. I don't know if Wendy can answer that.
But usually when there's some big new development, we do ask for about 20% to be open space. That's part of a PRD and things like that, but it's not a across the board policy.
Okay, thank you. And then I was also just wondering, like, because some of the MCI acres is along the riverfront, I mean, I don't know what the, I guess, regulations are in terms of not encroaching with, the built world, right? Within X feet of the river. Like, I'm just wondering what all of that, I'm not really well educated as to what those considerations are.
Yeah, some of that's going to be zoning that will require it. So we do have lots of that kind of criteria.
Okay.
But so the challenge with MCI is they have to define the zoning, but
Yeah.
it would be put into that zoning when it's created.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that hopefully will be in our favor, the 20% figure you mentioned, Wendy, as well as some of these riverfront access kind of
yeah.
considerations.
Yeah, 20%. I think the 40Bs, I think affordable housing also requires 20% open space. And even the that new development that they're proposing across from the hospital, they're offering 20% green space as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it's what, 50 acres at MCI? So 20% would be 10 acres of open space altogether. Am I doing my math
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure how the water treatment plant plays into some of that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be some good proportion of open space in that area.
Okay. All right. I think I had seen Nicole's hand up. Nicole, do you still have a comment? Oh wait, Nicole, you need to be off of mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think somebody mentioned a botanical garden. Maybe that
Yeah.
was Laura. And so I was in Berkeley, California for a week visiting my daughter, and I was blown away with how much open space they had and how much garden space or natural space they had. It'd be kind of cool to have a botanical native garden in many ways. I know you've got loads of open space for hiking and whatnot, but maybe a place for just playing. There was a lot of picnics going on, hiking. It was just more open and you could see things coming through the seasons.
Mhm.
Well, I'll tell you honestly, I kind of threw that in as just sort of a far out idea. Maybe an arboretum is a better way to think about it, like the one in
Yeah.
Acton. But I also think of it, something like that as a way to attract other people from not only the town, but other places, make it a bit of a destination in addition to just housing and open space and, or it doesn't, or maybe not that, but something else that becomes an attraction that will draw people to this area.
I agree, Barbara. I mean, all the places I went to in Berkeley were mind blowing. I was to have such a condensed city have so much offerings of open space was really cool.
It's also an opportunity to teach people about the natural world, that through small
Absolutely.
signs about what are these native plants and why are they important to instill
Yep.
that sense of, value in our community.
I went to the Berkeley um, botanical garden, and even though not everything was out, it was really cool to see my daughter and I were so interested in reading about the different plants. And it's something that you could come back to almost every month and see how it changes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, my question is, how would something like that be maintained? Like, how would any more curated open space within the MCI property be maintained? Would the developer be expected to maintain it? Would the town be expected to? I'm just not usually clear on whose responsibility that is. Does anybody know?
I don't know, but right now, what you want to do is advocate for what you want
Yep,
Yeah.
okay,
and focus
yeah,
on that.
okay.
Because there's that Department of Natural Resources, right? I would
Yeah,
assume that
yeah.
they would help out. But yeah, let's get the vision down.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think that what I saw here and that we've just been talking about is really using the green space as, I don't know, a backbone or a structural concept that helps us link together the MCI property with West Concord Village and like lures people to explore, well outside of the MCI property through to West Concord Village and likewise in the opposite direction going from the village to the MCI property, like kind of fascinating people with that and leading them through the community basically.
And I think it gets to our walkability, right? If you're going to create these spaces that connect, it makes one want to walk it on foot rather than drive it, right? Because you want to see these gardens, you want to read those signs.
Yeah.
And that goes hand in hand with a lot of other goals for the town, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing that I experienced in Berkeley, which is only a Berkeley-ish thing to do, is that it was newt season. And so they closed a road for newts that you couldn't go by because they were crossing around them. But the really cool thing is I got to see them hatch. My point being is you could also talk about what the wildlife is going on in this natural habitat, what you could keep an eye out for, what you might see.
And the schools could utilize that as an educational tool.
I know the schools go to Walden Pond. I'm not sure if they go to any of our other natural resources in town. Does anyone with kids know, like, have they gone to White Pond or
Not to my knowledge,
Warner's?
my kids haven't. And I'm wondering if because it's not structured and connected in an organized fashion, if they don't think to do it.
It'd be hard to do White Pond. But it's funny, I was in Fairyland earlier today with another parent, and our kids were in elementary school together. And it's like, didn't we take our kids here? And so it's not unusual to do but I think it's Fairyland and then Walden Pond to see Thoreau's original place
Okay.
that I
I
recall.
think I was going to say when my kids were at Concord Children's Center, they would often do these walking, put the kids in the stroller and walk all around town. But like the Thoreau School could easily do that with how close they are to all these spaces. But I just don't think that they do.
Well, Thoreau for a while had a naturalist garden space that they created and turned it in part of the science curriculum. It's
Mhm.
been a little bit abandoned in the last 5 or 6 or 7
Yes.
years because you have to have parents who are
Yeah.
interested enough. But it was definitely created. In fact, Minuteman High School built a shed to go in the garden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called Grounds for Learning.
Yep, and
Great, Barbara. It's
it's
gone to
definitely a piece of the science curriculum to get kids out there. Now it's on the grounds of the school, but I think there have been efforts made in the past to bring more of that kind of learning to the children.
Well, Thoreau
Definitely.
School is going on under a whole new redesign in their yard, but they also did a river walk to the Assabet from behind Thoreau. And it seems upon generation or families, a couple of decades apart, a group of parents want to do something special at Thoreau School, and then another group of parents 2 decades later wants to do something. But it's something to think about and learn about. It's like what they did for the Riverwalk was amazing to get to see the Assabet and then
Okay,
habitat.
I think this is an amazing vision. I love the idea of having some kind of new native planting garden that can be maybe a jewel within the MCI property and a place for people to learn and admire our native plants, and also maybe there'd be some native wildlife there. So having
Hey,
that be
Susan,
maybe at one end. Yeah, go ahead.
can I just say that I know that the Rivers program at the high school uses all the spaces in town. They use Fairyland and they use a lot of places, but they've used Warner's Pond and Giroux Park, which is right across from this.
Okay.
And so if we're going to be, tying together or creating new spaces, that we'd probably want to, say that because those are places that already exist right nearby.
Yes, I agree.
Also, just something that we did as a family is we put our canoe in at Cousins. I may have mentioned this before, and we were seeing West Concord by river, and it was amazing. And I'm envisioning if MCI wasn't, the new MC, the new thing, whatever it is, you can actually imagine getting out there and having a picnic. I wish that would have been the case because my daughter was hungry and we had no way to, get out. There was nowhere to disembark, from our canoe. So I'm seeing this as like on foot and by river.
Mhm. So that gets to the blue spaces, yeah. Okay, so I think, so our idea is for the green and blue spaces to be so inviting and so like kind of in a sequence, maybe, from MCI to the village and vice versa, that people are flowing as pedestrians, bikers, and non-motorized vehicles between the two pretty seamlessly, enjoying it, having, mental health benefits. The kids can come from schools and study different things in these locations. And it is kind of like a curated place, a destination, as you were saying, to welcome the community. Okay, so I'm wondering, like, maybe Anna, because I know the Greenway is your sort of initial idea. Would you feel comfortable writing up something that kind of like encapsulates our ideas about this green and blue space connectedness and how it kind of serves the goal of connecting the flow of people as well, between MCI and West Concord Village? I
Sure.
can send you this updated doc where I'm taking notes here, and then maybe you can put something together. Would
Yep.
that work?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's see. We can, I think, go from the green and blue spaces to the idea of connectivity, which we've been talking about actually quite a lot with the green and blue spaces. But these this is what everyone said about connectivity. So like, as I'm looking at these, I do kind of think maybe we can cover the idea of connectivity within the green and blue spaces idea. Because I think a lot of this stuff repeats what we already saw in the green and blue spaces.
I agree.
What about bike trails for commuters? Can we advocate for that somewhere in the MCI development? Because we've been talking about that a long time too. And the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is obviously great, but it doesn't actually take you to work, as far as I know. Or maybe it could be added to get people to different spots. But could we ask for that to be looked at again?
Let's see. So are you thinking of like trails within the MCI development that would then take you to the rail trail?
I guess I'm thinking, could there be a way to easily bike between West Concord and regular Concord? That was one thing we've been asking for a long time. But also, I just remember Ann Sussman always saying, like, it's hard to commute by bike from Concord to anywhere else. And is this maybe a time that we could advocate for that? I mean, this is bigger than West Concord, but would this be a time to advocate for that?
I was thinking that if the rotary got redesigned, then I think having
That
a
would be
way
the
for
time.
pedestrians to go from one side to the other would be much easier.
They've
Okay,
talked about this on the MCI committee, because I'm the observer there. They've definitely talked about this as a concept, and it's complicated. The timeline for DOT doing the rotary redesign and what they're going to do, and designing something for the MCI property that integrates well with that. But they've definitely talked about pedestrian bike access over or under. I don't know if it will happen, but it's out there, and I think it would be helpful. What I've heard said is the more they hear about any of these things, the more it gets into their, consciousness and their planning.
Okay, that's great.
I mean, I think the way just to add to what Allison said, that we always talked about how hard it is to bike through West Concord Center safely, right? But this would sort of be that plus that we're asking for.
So could this, I mean, you said commuting, like, and I know some people who bike from here into Boston, like, could this be connected to the Minuteman Bikeway? I'm just like looking up Minuteman Bike Trail. Like, would there be
Yeah.
a way to connect all of these different bikeways or
That's
not?
a good question. Yeah.
Because I think, my neighbor, like I said, my neighbor bikes and I don't know how he does it, probably not so safely. But if you could link like ours
Yeah.
to the main Minuteman one, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I have gotten to the Minuteman Trail using Reformatory Branch Trail that kind of like begins where Nosh and Concord Market are. Have you guys been on Reformatory Branch Trail? If you continue
Yes.
taking it towards Boston, it eventually turns into the
Okay.
Minuteman Trail.
Oh,
Yeah.
That would be
so it wouldn't
amazing then
be,
if we could connect
yeah,
West Concord to that.
exactly.
Hmm. I
Wouldn't
like
be
that.
such a stretch.
Okay.
And
So
can I say another thing about
yeah.
connectivity before I forget it?
Yeah.
Could we ever have a Concord West Concord shuttle?
I think Transportation Advisory has been talking about that, right?
Yeah,
All
they
right.
have. Yep.
They actually had that going. They had a pilot shuttle system between West Concord and Concord. Was that 2 years
Crosstown
ago?
Connect.
What's that?
Yep.
Yep.
There's something Crosstown Connect.
Is it
Yeah, I
still
don't know what it was
exist?
called, but I don't know if that was successful, what the ridership was, and if they decided it wasn't. I don't know, Wendy, if you know anything about how successful or not that program was.
I think it was partially grant funded and the grant went out.
Uh,
But I know it's a topic that people are still concerned about because also with that new Thoreau residence development and, everybody wants that. The transportation committee's been advocating for it also. You should ask Elizabeth about it. That might be a topic that you want to ask her about the next time you meet with the planning department or planning.
Okay. So I think, let's see, these issues here with connectivity, I feel like can be folded into the green and blue spaces vision. And then I think what we were just talking about with
Mm.
bikes and stuff, I feel like that is aligned with the pedestrian and bike access improvements.
Yeah.
because I thought when you said connectivity, Susan, I thought we were going to be talking about the fact that we don't want the MCI, future property to be like its own separate area that isn't well integrated and connected with all of West Concord.
Yeah,
Maybe
and I
that's
think,
a different
yeah.
topic.
No, I think that does fold into the bigger idea of the greenway though, because I think you wouldn't end up with it being isolated if you have this intriguing space and people treat like walking along on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail between MCI and West Concord as like a lovely stroll that they enjoy doing every day, or that there are always things to see there. Like I don't think that you would have to, like, I don't know, force the integration of the two sort of like economic areas if you had this way of luring people back and forth that was just like a lovely walking experience or riding experience. I guess so. I'm maybe trying to combine them together, but
Maybe it's just the language and making sure that
yeah,
it doesn't end up as I think when I finally listened to the recording, it doesn't end up as a fourth village unto itself. Like maybe
yeah,
just to weave that kind of idea
yeah,
in there.
yes.
Sorry, what's the third village? West,
So
wait,
the Thoreau, what's it called? 80 Thoreau, like what the district, that area there by the train station. And then there's
uh-huh.
Concord Center, and then there's West Concord.
Oh, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. The 80th row.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so maybe it's important to mention, set the table of what we do want, and then also mention what we don't want or what we feel like would be a missed opportunity.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, without attention paid to this, I think the MCI property would turn into like a little bubble unto itself. And I think that would be really devastating for Concord as a whole, but especially for West Concord Village. Um, okay, so if we look at the pedestrian bike access improvements that you all had surfaced. Let's see, signage, walkability, Kenneth Square. As I was thinking about the connectivity, but also like the pedestrian bike experience, I don't know too much about what the like lighting situation is on the Bruce Fruman Rail Trail, say like between the commuter rail and MCI when it's like 4:30 on a winter night or 10 o'clock on a summer night. Like, do you guys know if there is lighting already there, or do you need to carry a flashlight really to see where you're going?
I think
I
it's
have no
pretty
idea.
dark. Yeah, I think I went out a few times and was surprised at how dark it was because the MCI lighting was sort of lights up that whole end, but
Yeah,
that's going to stop.
right, yeah.
It also goes through like behind, the new Concord Middle School. There's a lot of natural, wildlife and such. You wouldn't want like big, big lights also disturbing homes and nature. So I don't know. It's a tricky thing, but I know obviously you need something if you want to use it when it's dusk and such.
Well, and if
Yeah.
it's near residential areas, people are very sensitive to having lights that are on all the time. If it's near
Yes.
their houses, that's part of the reason I think, Wendy, you can correct me, that the lights at Rideout go off at 8 o'clock at night or something, because
Hmm.
the people who live
Absolutely. Yep.
by, yeah.
Yep.
And Allison, do you remember it might have been a decade or two ago where a lot of the streetlights went out because of light pollution? So the town was very cognizant of
Mm.
light pollution that was going on, but you guys bring up a great point, like the transportation between the two, West Concord and the MCI area, especially with the commuter rail. Maybe you could figure out a way to do low lights so that the path is lit, but it doesn't in
Disturb too much.
Kind of like the new bridge they're building over to Baker Ave.
mm,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was
Did anyone
impressed.
look at that video? That
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
is cool.
I do remember when they turned the lights out in Concord Center at dark.
It's dark
People
because I live
started
here.
falling.
Yeah, no, I have to carry a flashlight. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess in thinking about if we want to encourage people to bike and walk as opposed to taking a car, we need to make sure that that was, you
Consider-
know, they were able to do that in all seasons, for instance, because if you can do it in summer but not in winter, people get a car anyway or something just because they know that they're not going
Yeah.
to feel safe all the time walking home from the train or something. So just something maybe that the consultants could give advice on, especially in that stretch between the train and what will be probably some housing at MCI. Okay, so pedestrian bike access improvements. It sounded like we'd like to use this project if possible to have a better connection between West Concord and the other side of Route 2, which is regular Concord. So I think we could mention that, and also advocate for pedestrian and bike infrastructure improvements in the current footprint of West Concord Village, to make coming there by, walking or taking a bike a lot more safe for new people who will end up using the roads and the sidewalks and everything.
Sorry, Susan, on that across Route 2, are you talking about just by the Rotary? Because I'm thinking also just where 62, crosses over. Like I was thinking, oh, I'd love to take my kids to the 250th on my bike, but I really don't feel comfortable going over on 62. So I don't know if that area could also be addressed.
Okay, yeah. So as you're heading on 62 out of West Concord Center, towards
Concord Center.
Concord Center. Um,
Because if there's more people interested in coming to this new MCI West Concord area,
yeah,
they're going to be coming from Concord, back and forth between Concord Center, presumably.
yeah. I want to ask Wendy, based on your attendance at MCI meetings, do you think something that's a little further away like that is still in scope? Like, are we okay bringing that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're trying to think bigger picture, and I think
Yeah,
Barbara said it too. You want to bring people to the area safely,
yeah,
and so that's part of it. It's the connection,
yeah.
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. So I feel like suggesting two areas where there could be a crossing of Route 2. I feel like that would be great. I feel like by MCI is a little bit more I don't know, natural to think of in this discussion.
Yeah.
However, it could be that something crossing by 62 could happen more in the near term, given that if the rotary gets redesigned, like that's a long-term project. So who knows?
Yeah.
It is. The other one is Baker Ave, which is
Mhm.
closer to Novo. I mean,
Yeah.
we just have to think there's going to be a lot of people around, and how
Yeah.
do they, they cut across? But
Yeah. So you're thinking Baker Ave extension, like how
yeah,
that,
I mean,
okay.
but these are all on the radar screen too.
Okay.
But I think what Mark told me, the Rotary project would actually encompass the bridge that goes over the river. It doesn't go quite down to the intersection, but we were talking about the river access and improvements. That bridge isn't, I guess, needs to be replaced, or at some point it needs to be considered. So the scope
Okay.
of the Rotary project will go up to and include that bridge.
Okay.
But yeah, throw in anything you think is appropriate.
Yeah. Okay.
Where to go? Wendy, which bridge do you mean?
So it's, what, if between the Rotary and the Baker Ave intersection, you literally have to cross you don't notice it as a highway, but there's a bridge there that's
Right
next
at
to the
what
water
used to be
treatment.
Assabet Avenue opening?
Oh, yeah, it's before then.
Okay.
I think it's next to the state police. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
You notice
It's where
it when
the
you
river comes under the roadway.
you notice all the rebar sticking out of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, that too.
Here. Okay, so let's see. So we talked about the pedestrian and bike access improvements, and connectivity. I think another three that were, proposed a lot, traffic, parking, and housing. So I guess I'll just go here to traffic.
None of this will be a surprise to them. It's high on their list.
Okay. So should we separate the issue of, say, the route to Rotary from other traffic challenges? Because I'm kind of thinking, I mean, while they are connected to each other, there are other traffic challenges in West Concord that maybe we want to outline more.
It's exasperated by the Rotary, and I think they're. So what were you going to do? Separate Rotary from traffic?
I don't know. Maybe that's a bad idea.
Isn't it?
Well, I feel like there's part of like the vision of what you want it to be, which
Right.
is sort of different to me than solving than
The problem.
the result of that exacerbating an existing problem.
Right.
Like to me, those two things are different.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I'm saying? Like, here's our three core things that we want that are really positive. And then while doing that, please don't, please, avoid exacerbating this problem or fix this issue.
So yeah, so I guess traffic would be a thing that we would say, while achieving this grand vision that we're painting for you, we would appreciate these other current, negative things about our community being addressed or helped.
Yeah.
Or you're concerned about it being
It's like
exacerbated.
enablers. These are the
Yeah.
enablers, maybe that's the way to say. Here's our vision and here's the enablers to the
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a link too that there's going to be more, there's just going to be more traffic with the
Right.
development at MCI. So it's the right time
Yeah.
to mitigate the traffic problem.
Okay. Is everyone good with the whole traffic discussion? I think we've talked about this quite a lot. If we created a message about fixing traffic, I feel like all of these things that were mentioned here, like including Route 2 and the Rotary, I guess, could be folded in, and I can see them as sort of like bullet points underneath the broader topic of traffic.
Yep.
So let's go to parking. I guess this only came up twice.
But again, I see this in the same
Mm-hmm.
camp as traffic, like it's an
Yeah.
enabler. You have to have, I mean, again, we want it to be walkable. But for people to arrive in the ecosystem and then be able to walk it once they're here.
I feel like since then I've been doing a little bit.
So I guess what would we want to say about housing? Do we have an opinion or a point of view on it? I tend to agree with, just having a bigger diversity of housing in Concord is great. So I'm in favor. But I kind of feel like all of it's going to get hashed out by zoning. But I don't know, we should maybe see if we
Well,
have an opinion on what we want.
supporting housing is probably important for them to hear.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to be looking at housing versus business development ultimately, but you know, if it's important to you, then say that, particularly your diversity of housing and multifamily.
What
And you know,
about,
the other question about affordable, the select board's been talking a little bit about sort of workforce housing. You know, affordable is at 80% of AMI, but so if that's important and there's a distinction there, raise that too.
I'm just thinking about like to me, unfortunate clearing of the Thoreau Woods, where that property, knocks down all these trees and it's far from you can't really walk anywhere from there. So if this presents an opportunity, to do that in a very different way where someone can walk to the train station, walk to all the stores and not knock down all those trees, that's a much better solution.
You want green space integrated.
Maybe we can state it as a plan to create small little neighborhoods as opposed to just an apartment building here and some townhouses here, but really
a neighborhood feel.
and
Yeah, I like
also
that.
neighborhood
dual
setting.
use buildings where you have shops on the bottom and houses on the top. I mean, that really makes a town someplace where people live.
Yep.
Having single family homes as well.
Yeah, but maybe smaller ones.
Exactly. So I was thinking, when I read that, I thought about all the work that Dan Gainsborough does with the smaller community and cluster housing. I think cluster homes are really great. Neighborhoods would be really lovely.
That's like the Mill Run development. Is that what you're talking about, Nicole? Okay.
And the one next to it, and he has one in Carlisle. He has another one in Devon's. He does it brilliantly.
Yeah, those are really well done.
And they're
Do
all
they have any commercial, anything in it, or is it all housing?
No,
All housing.
very small housing, but it's like there's a couple along the Assabet River here. The original one was River Walk, and then he
Mhm.
built one next to it, and they're all green. They're not inexpensive by any stretch of the imagination, but they aren't at the upper cost that a lot of people have here in West Concord.
They have a community garden and a community, space. It's very community oriented.
Like, the original Riverwalk has a big screened-in porch for community gatherings, as well as the garden. Um, I don't like every little village of his has a big benefit of some sort that people can use as a community.
And those actually back up onto woods and the river, right? And
But he also has done Carlisle and Devon's.
I don't know those. Yeah.
So those are really great too.
Yeah, I think as a developer, he has a website and I've looked at some of his stuff because yeah, they do a lot of sustainable development.
Well, and the Devon's one is the land is probably closer to MCI. That is to say, it was a more open space. So it might be a particularly good model to encourage people to look at.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. Exactly. That's a great point.
Okay.
Did you want to say Devon's? I think that's what you were saying. Was it Barbara who said that?
All right. Anything else we want to say about housing? There are some statements about the mixed use slash commercial development that we can go to next. So we don't have to cover that here within housing. But anyone else have ideas or suggestions on housing?
Did we say that we just are hoping that it doesn't get filled with identical 3,000 square foot houses? I mean, should we say that, or is that?
I mean,
We have a lot of
personally
those.
would love to say that. But I'm also not sure that there's any risk of that happening, just because of the state and its involvement. I think like
Okay.
the state really wants to see more, like diverse housing and stuff that's not, just like another, single family neighborhood or something.
But what keeps it from being a development like what we have in Maynard with the new Market Basket and all the different shops around there, as well as the other housing, like an Avalon, like
Yeah.
are popping up everywhere. And if anyone doesn't know what an Avalon is, it's usually short-term temporary housing for a year or two, apartments and whatnot. And then there's also one in Wayland. So I feel like there's a lot of these little developments that are popping up with some stores that you might want to go to, a hardware store, a grocery store, and then housing that's not necessarily attractive.
hmm
I'm sure it's just cost effective. I mean,
Yeah. But it's a good idea to say what we don't want,
Yeah.
examples like that, Nicole. I think that's a really good example. I would not, if it turned out like that Market Basket area, that would be not at all in line with the vision.
And I love that Market Basket so much.
Yeah. Wait,
My husband just got back from there. I mean, it is
Mm.
handy, but
Yeah.
the one in Wayland, I think, is better.
It is, and they have some additional individual housing that
That's right. The design is better.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is, but it's still not a village, is
Well,
it?
but we also want to make sure that if we suggest combining retail with housing in similar buildings that we're not taking away from what is currently in the center of West Concord. That's a risk, and I think that's the risk. The one in Maynard particularly, I'm sure it's drawn people away from the center of Maynard, which has had challenges for years. The one in Wayland, I'm not so sure because it was built in an area where there wasn't housing already, or there wasn't a center already. There was a small shopping center a little bit further down Route 20 that doesn't seem to really exist anymore. But it was I think it was a better design space. But, we'd all be furious if it made Deborah's close, or if, Phillips Hardware is already closed, but.
And it was surrounded by a huge parking lot. Like, that's just
Right.
no green space. Like, that's
Right.
horrible.
Yeah. Which one? Oh,
Just
Maynard?
the Avalon Market. I don't know the
Also,
Wayland one as well, but
Wayland is surrounded by, they're all huge asphalt
Huge.
parks, both of Maynard and Wayland,
yeah.
and like Glenfield and all these other places. That's like open air malls. We don't want to have an open air mall.
Right.
I mean, what
like
about
Dedham Legacy Place is another example of what we don't want.
Exactly.
Can you all think of a place that has done the kind of development that we would want recently, like with I don't know, the retail on the bottom floor and then housing above it, but in a way that's tasteful?
Is there anything in like Boulder or like a different city that I don't know? I'd have to think about that.
There's one down in Greenville, South Carolina, where they had done something similar to this, where they developed a park. They had a gorgeous park for the kids to play in. They even had like a little certain times of the year they had like an actual train that would take the kids around on rides all over the park. And then on the outskirts of it, they had these great, like they were year round, but they had these great nice buildings that had glass garage doors that would open up and spill out onto these, outdoor kind of indoor outdoor, experience, kind of like a little bit where what's the place? Third Ave in Burlington has a little like a Stereo Nino there, the Italian place, and then they have like a greenway where the kids can play in like the fountains and stuff, and then there's a restaurant on the other side, which is I think that sports bar that's there. But it's kind of that feel, but they instead of doing it that way, they have the big park in the middle. They've got around the outskirts, they have these really cool like ice cream shop, like a small beer hall, and the parents could literally go and just enjoy a nice cocktail and an appetizer while the kids are playing out there in the. And it's just gorgeous. I should have my buddy Peter, who lives down there, send pictures of it because it's absolutely beautiful. And it fits and flows with the design of downtown Greenville, which they've gone and invested like millions and millions of dollars into. And it's clean and it's organized, and like you just catch the flow of it all. And there's a mix of just very low key. You can't even sometimes tell that it's even housing, and it's all blended together into this amazing, like just family experience. And it's like, it would be, that's like what I picture when I see that. It's like we have a gold mine here with us, and it's like, that we've been given or basically given back, for very little money. And it's like, I mean, we got to do this right. And it's like, I wish we could just take everybody and just take a trip to Greenville and walk around and just look at it, because it's one of the best examples of what everybody's talking about here. If we went down there, you guys would all say, holy crap, this is what we need to do,
Wow.
because it's just such a great, like, and you can get dinner with your family, and they have live music out there on certain nights, that's just really like chill and relaxing and having a good time, and yet it all flows. There's a symmetry to it that you're just kind of like, you're like, man, this is just such a cool vibe. I was down there a few months ago, and I was just like, and it was, of course, down there in South Carolina in February, it was still like 50, 60 degrees, and or 65 degrees at some days, and they opened the place up, and was like, let's enjoy this. But I mean, that's what like I always, dream about, is having something like that where the kids can play. We can grab an ice cream with them. We can get a nice dinner if we want to, at a restaurant there. But in anything that I'm talking about, nothing conflicts with West Concord itself. You're not talking about, there's no ice cream parlor down there now with reasons to be cheerful out. You add a couple more restaurants, you have a beer garden. Like, it's not, those things like just add to what West Concord is, not take away from it. You're not adding another Deborah's or something like that that's going to conflict with it, that could take, like what's happened with Maynard and in the crossing. It's
It says
pulled
it's a
away.
national model for a pedestrian-friendly city center that's been compared to that of a European city.
It's
It's got a
phenomenal.
vibrant downtown that is authentic, sustainable, and most importantly for people. Interesting.
It's unbelievable. It's like one of the coolest. I mean, they have mayors from all over the country coming and looking at Greenville and what they've done. And it's like the newest thing, and it's really cool. So, but that's
Pictures online that we could show and
um
I was just looking at some. I can't really get. I don't know, Susan. I don't know what the rules are here. Can you go to?
I can
Can we
stop
look at websites
sharing.
or?
Yeah, are you able to share? Do you have permission
Hold on
to
a
do
second.
that?
Let me just
Maybe I
see. I
can.
don't know if this is the best. Hold on a second. I don't know, Greg, if this picture that I have up is what,
Oh,
can you see
yeah.
it?
It's kind of a stylized picture. I've been to
Yeah,
Greenville as well, and I fully agree. It is a pretty incredible downtown. They've done an amazing job.
I don't know what, I don't know which section is really most analogous to that is.
We
But
should
anyway.
ice skating park,
Oh,
ice skating rink, an open ice skating rink. I know it's random, but I'm thinking about this Greenville development. There's also a wonderful area of DC called the DC Wharf, which is a completely new development, which they have huge adult swings that could have a family of 4 or 5 on the swing. They have giant Jenga. They have bands. They have bookstores. They have, which we don't have in West Concord, but it might compete with Concord Center. But it's also a very, very family friendly area. So maybe that's one of the things we add is family friendly attractions.
Hmm.
it's
Anyway, good and
there's a
interesting.
really cool thing that I saw one city do, where they had like a an outdoor like water thing, where the water came out of the ground and everything else. Then in the winter, that's when they put up the whole rink, and they just used the water from that and filled it in. And then it just got,
Mm.
of course, it got cold enough there for it to freeze. And that's what they would use to fill it. And then once the summer came around and it melted, they took the walls down and the water just kind of dispersed. But it's really cool how they used those, like the little water, I guess, area where the kids can go and play, and then
Water
go ahead and what's that?
water park.
Yeah, like a water. Yeah, I mean,
A
I don't.
splash pad?
Well, yeah, splash pad. That's it. Like
Yeah.
the splash pads, and then they just use it to build out their ice skating rink by putting up some rink walls, and that's it. And a liner, and it works. So
Okay, these are really cool ideas. This is great. Okay, so I think we can probably summarize these housing ideas and the family-friendly neighborhood that we seem to be envisioning that we would want the MCI property to entail. Diversity of housing, lots of stuff to do outdoors, um, incrementally additive shops and restaurants that aren't competing with West Concord's, but are just embellishing upon what we already have. I know we're nearing the end of our time here. We should probably get to this idea about expanding the commercial tax base, which is kind of tied into housing a little bit. And then we can also talk about architectural design and history. Those are our last two, so we can hopefully get through these quickly. All right, so let's take a look at this. So what are your thoughts about having light industry in this new 50-acre space, and also having commercial building or commercial establishments maybe beyond restaurants, and service businesses, let's say, like offices? I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Like, does anyone have thoughts on that?
I mean, it reminds me of the plans that we reviewed for the UNS gas station and the adjacent lot there that are supposed to be sort of those mixed use, tastefully done constructions. And I think it would be consistent. I mean, they showed at least the is it 13B, at least he was able to show like a tastefully done, you know, design for that everybody seemed to like. So that those kinds of, I would imagine, I mean, we all had like consensus on that kind of design. I imagine it would extend to, same consensus would extend to the MCI.
So you're talking about the format of the retail on the ground floor and then residential
Yeah.
units above?
And
Okay.
then the design of it was sort of like, you know, brick and glass, and it was intended to mimic the architecture of West Concord Town Center.
Yeah.
I'm still hoping he goes forward with that. So good.
I know.
Maybe this will sort of somehow dislodge it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's different than light industry. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking there are
Yeah.
a couple of light industry things along, well, this side, on either side of Winthrop Street, for example, and a little bit further up, there are car repair places. There's is the foundry still there? There are the office buildings in the parking lot that you can access Neshoba Brick from. That's the kind of thing I would think might be useful. And then I did think back to all the little places that used to be where the Brookside apartments got built, some of which managed to find space other places and some of which just went away. Carolyn's Pecans used to be in there. They were just small businesses. Maybe industrial is the wrong word.
Like makers,
but I think,
artisans.
yeah, we need to have spaces for things like that.
So
Yeah, I guess maybe we need a definition of what, what that,
What's the right
what
name for
light,
that?
yeah, what does light industry mean? What are the parameters of that? Because I'm not sure. I know what you're saying. I mean, Neshoba, it has their own, they're obviously, baking there. You've got all the
The
ovens
soap
and stuff. I
factory
just
would
don't
be an
know where,
example.
Right. I mean, for me, that would definitely qualify as light industry, Neshoba Brook.
yeah, but like, how far could it go, and how large
Yeah. Well,
and
those are all those zoning issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't know
could,
how the tax base, like, is it, I don't know how the tax rates are, I guess, are done, like Welch's, that we used to be in Baker Ave, is it done by, how is it done? Like, do we get more revenue from, because they have more square footage, or I'm not even sure how it all works.
Well, we need to diversify the tax base because 90 to 95% of our taxes is from residences right now.
Right, that's the
Oh
goal.
yeah, 100%. I mean, that's why I'm agreeing with you. I put my thought down in here as well. I'm just not sure where on the industry side, like how far you go into that zone.
we
I
also
don't know the answer.
we also add that if there are going to be light industry, that it would be green,
Yeah.
that would be environmentally friendly. I think that would be huge.
Yeah, and are there certain types of target industries that we would encourage, that we'd particularly target to try to attract them? Maybe we should define what those might be.
I mean, it sounds like everyone likes Potager soap and Nashoba Bakery. Trying to think of what other, isn't there like a cabinet maker and maybe even like a window blinds installer that's currently in our industrial district now, here in
There
West
is
Concord?
someone who does windows. The, I don't know about the cabinet maker.
What's
What's
in
the
that?
plug? What is the
Cabinet
business
maker
called
used to be in
Plug-in?
the Overbrook building.
Used to be in what building, Barbara?
In the main level, lower level of the Neshoba Brook Bakery. And when they
Oh, okay.
took over the whole building, they found other space, yeah.
I see.
But
Okay.
the window place, is the little building
WTI?
on the street,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Wes Rush's, not just, but it's his business, but he's like selling, whatever the shades are. He's not like a manufacturer, he's like a rep,
Yeah,
right?
but they'll come in and design window coverings for your home too.
Yeah.
But they're not
Or
they're
what's
not
the,
manufacturing them there, I guess maybe
No,
is what you're
yeah, I guess
saying.
that's all
They're
I'm
just
saying. Or
staging
like the
them. Okay.
upholsterer, like what's the thing, the
yeah,
upholstery?
yeah. Lawless upholstery, yeah.
Lawless. Thank you, yeah. Like, would you consider that, like, I would just consider that a commercial, like a business, but I don't know that I consider that light industry. I think that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, well, they do all the reupholstering there. They're not sending anything out.
Can I share what I've heard at the MCI? Just conversations. They're
Yeah.
so, they're far away, but the ideas they've talked about or thrown around, which aren't official at all, and they're waiting for public feedback about what they do and don't want. But apparently, the most lucrative thing, which no one wants, and everyone knows no one wants it, would be an Amazon call center.
Oh, God.
And they know we don't want that, but they have been all, sometimes trying really hard to come up with a use. I've never heard them talk about small, like we're talking about now. What I've heard them talk about is bigger ideas like a satellite campus for a college, or something like that. And I don't even know how that gets them more money. They're just brainstorming. But I haven't heard them talk about just small little storefronts.
Yeah, they're looking for kind of an anchor, something
Yeah.
that attracts, something they can build around, whether it's I don't know, but something green or some innovation center or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that's, what are the selection criteria, like that
Yeah.
have they developed that, or is somebody working
No, I
on
mean,
that?
I'll tell you, in the next couple months, they're going to come up these on the 28th of this month, and then on the 30th of May, I might have them screwed up. They're going to have these information sessions. They're really looking for feedback from everybody.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Well, I mean, I think they'll have some, but they don't want to.
No, I'm saying that it's disappointing that they're looking for like an Amazon type thing or
No, I
No.
want to say they're not looking for an Amazon type thing.
I'm-
They were saying that that would be what the most
Lucrative.
Egregious.
Yeah.
economic like thing,
Oh.
but they understand that no one wants that.
Right.
but even having a college, it would be a 501, it would be a nonprofit, so it wouldn't be a tax base.
Yeah, I mean, they're just throwing out ideas, but then looking for feedback. They're just thinking,
Don't we already have base, not base, is it Bay State or Bay Path? We have Bay Path here in Concord.
oh, and Welch it. Well, yeah. I
So
don't know.
what is that?
What is Big
Oh,
Path?
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
What's that ratio called, Susan, that we try to stay, like, we don't want the big box or franchises, we try to keep it
The formula
15%.
businesses, right? And
Formula
that's,
businesses.
yeah. And that is like, that's specific to our zoning in West Concord Village. And also there are rules about formula businesses in Concord Center and maybe in the Thoreau Depot area. But like, whatever the zoning is for this new MCI property is gonna be unique. So they might set a formula business count that is, different than what we've got in West Concord Village. We can give input on it, I'm sure.
What is ours right now? Do you know, Susan? I should know.
I think it's 10. I think 10 is our
10%?
cap. Yeah. No, it's not a percent. It's like
Oh.
a count, I think. If
Oh.
I'm not mistaken, I think it's like we can't have more than 10 like units of formula business.
Yeah,
in
it's not a
West Concord.
percentage. It's a,
Yeah.
it's a unit.
Yeah.
And gas
Huh.
stations count.
Okay. I'm not sure how to think about that because how do you then apply that to a new area if there's not a formula? Like there's not a, you know what I'm saying? Like 10.
Yeah.
What's 10 based on?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't
that's an
know.
issue. I think we should discuss what we would want in terms of formula.
It got
Business.
voted on and Center of West Concord is stricter in terms of the number of formula businesses it allows when compared with either the center of town or the depot area.
We're stricter, you're saying.
We are stricter. We have a smaller number allowed, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think we would want to retain that kind of feeling that you're not like you've got the potager and you've got the, the local smaller businesses. I mean,
Yeah,
again, to the point of wanting it to be economically viable, right?
Yeah.
There's
That's the
a balance
balance.
there, but that's why there's some kind of cap, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a big question really for the MCI development is how much would you welcome in like big national brands? And then also, how do you think about formula businesses? Is it that they have to be that there's only one of them anywhere, or can they be like a regional chain? I know like the West Concord, it's the West Concord Tavern, right? That took over
West
the
Village.
99 sorry, West Village Tavern. They're part of a regional set of restaurants, right? And there are probably like four
Yeah.
or so restaurants in that portfolio. But I don't think they were considered a formula business, if I'm not
Because they
mistaken.
changed their name and then they also, I can't remember right now. I go to their restaurant all the time on 128, and of course I can't think of it right now, but they changed the name of it and maybe changed the menu slightly to conform with a more local feel.
Yeah.
They're connected with the local.
Thank
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we had to think about like, if there's X amount of commercial space at MCI, what percentage do we think is right in terms of having formula businesses versus not formula?
Well,
Would
I
we-
mean,
the area
10%?
where Paparazzi used to be has got 3 or 4 formula businesses going in. So
Yeah.
it's sort of a matter too of is this going to be considered its own unique area? Is the area that's going to be almost right across the street, which has a Dunkin' Donuts, a Sally's
Yeah.
Pizza, and I can't think what the other one is that's going in there, a bank,
Chipotle.
Chipotle, thank you.
And
So there are
Starbucks.
4 right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that its own area? Does MCI have to be its own area? Or anyway, those
Yeah.
are the kinds of things that zoning ought to consider.
Yeah.
So for now, do you just want to say you want to limit formula business? Or are you just asking a question?
Yeah, I think we want to limit it. I
Yeah.
think so, right, Susan? We're just trying to figure out how to put
Yeah.
parameters around that.
But
Yeah.
maybe don't, just say you want to see it limited. It's too
Okay.
complex.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of thinking it might be okay for there to be, say, more than 10% formula businesses. And I don't know if you calculate it by square footage or not. It is complicated just because this is going to be like a larger format area. And so maybe you would want to attract in some, I don't know, anchors that are going to
Right.
draw people's interest and then also have a lot of other more unique shops and restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, but it's not done by percentage.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe we need to have it done by that because we have there seems like there isn't really an formulaic approach right now.
Yeah.
If you want these types of businesses, we need to make sure that the rent is affordable or the leases are affordable for them as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the other thing.
I've seen West Concord change a lot over the last 20 years just because leases have gone up in price. We're really lucky that we have the diversity that we do. And a lot of us can afford to go to a lot of the shops, but or some of the shops. So we want to make the shops affordable. We want it to be able for the regular Concordian to be able to, or area resident to be able to shop there.
I was also just thinking about Mimi. That's her name, right? The person who presented to
Right.
us
Mhm.
from the Economic Vitality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She made a comment about how the local businesses are much more connected to the community and they're much easier for them to, I don't know, contribute to local, causes and events. They don't have to go up the corporate chain of, Camellas or Cafe Nero. That stuck with me that she said that it feels much more like they're involved and committed and integrated into the local community. I think that's a big difference.
Mhm. Also, there's some sort of saying about like when you spend your money at, a local shop, I don't know, 90% of the money stays in the community. When you spend it
Yep.
at a chain that's there, it's like, I don't know, 30% stays in the community. And then when you shop online, it's, I don't know, like 1% stays in the community. I can't remember
Yeah,
really what the breakdown is, but that's
exactly.
always stuck with me too.
So maybe we could put, together some sort of support points for why that's important and connected to our values and our strategic vision.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we've got some notes here, and I just want to cover one more thing, which is the idea about, oh, sorry, we have 2 more things. Let's get into history for a second.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really important. Because it makes it unique. It gives it sort of a rooting, a grounding that's unlike any other place that you've gone to, right? It's not going to be the Trader Joe's Plaza or the Market Basket.
Yeah.
Let's remember that the whole Civil War thing happened. The whole mustering thing happened right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, just it's a further anchor for Concord, and we're such a place of history and
Yeah.
in all ways.
So do we think that there's someone else in Concord who is helping steward the history angle of this property? Or is that something that
Paul
we're going to need to do as
McCone
well?
is the one that came to talk to our group.
Yeah.
He could speak to this better than anybody else I know.
But MCI is definitely focused on the history here and how to preserve it and amplify it.
They are.
Yes.
So they know about all that?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
they absolutely do.
Okay, that's good.
Who was that guy that came, Susan, to one of our meetings? Was it?
Yeah, that was who was just saying that person's name? Was that you, Anna?
Paul
I can't
McCone.
remember.
Oh,
Paul
is that the
McCone.
same person who? I'm sorry, it didn't ring a bell, but thank you. Yeah, that was, I remember him talking about the statue that they preserved and that there was a fountain or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was saying that they would like to retain that fountain that's in front of the prison,
Mm,
which is separate from what he was talking about the Civil War mustering. But he was just saying, like, sometimes when these companies come in and
yeah,
there's demolition, things like that just sort of disappear. And we should make sure that
exactly.
that doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Has anyone talked about that, Wendy?
Wendy, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
I know. I have to keep turning it on and off. I haven't heard about the fountain specifically, but I'm sure someone's going to speak to it. But, I think it's good that you have it here.
Okay, so we want to make sure that whatever development happens, we also retain the historic pieces because that will give this uniqueness and grounding and kind of like continue to pull through the threads of Concord's historic past.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that suggests. I think architecture is another thing on your list there,
Yeah.
but I don't know what that suggests for the architectural design
Mm-hmm.
and what connections, there are there with the history.
Yeah.
Because if some of the buildings will, I don't know if there's going to be a building that's going to be still on the property.
Oh, like a prison building that would stay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if there is, but if there is, then you want it to kind of look kind of cohesive.
Yeah.
There are some buildings on there. They've been looking to see if there's some buildings that can be preserved and reused. So they've actually highlighted some of them. If they do that, then obviously the continuity of the buildings is going to be important.
Yeah.
Some of the buildings are newer, some of them are very old, and there's no need to preserve them.
Those.
Yeah.
I
Bye-bye.
mean, the main brick building in the front is very cool.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
historic one, but even
Yeah.
there's some newer buildings that they've used, like for warehousing or something that could be reused, that they're in pretty good shape.
I think it would be really, I mean, the house that's across there next to the parking lot, I believe it's historic. And I think it's the last remaining house in a row of houses that was actually the original West Concord. And it would be cool if, and I'm not saying they should do this, but it would be a cool idea to like recreate that somehow, like keep the original house and then expand from.
There's actually a house, that's on the Rotary that's actually the oldest building, that farmhouse.
Yeah.
I
that.
met with a superintendent up at the Correction Institute, and there was some discussion that could even be moved over next to that house because they'd want to preserve that too. No, that's a little out of scope here because that's really the Correctional Institute's property, but if they do that redesign, that was discussed or identified because it's older than most of the buildings.
So Allison and I went to that free screening of the movie about slavery and
Oh, yeah.
Oh, at the umbrella?
yes.
How
And
was
that
that? I meant to
house is
go.
featured in it. It
Oh,
was
I didn't know
open
that.
weekend.
It's
Oh,
gonna,
wow.
they're gonna make it available on PBS, right?
Yeah, if PBS still exists in July, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
jeez.
But
Seriously.
but that house was
Well
featured
said,
there.
yes.
Mm.
PBS may not exist next week.
So, do we have an opinion on which elements of architectural design we would want to see reflected in what's built there? Like, I think Nicole's articulating this idea about Concord's Main Street and the uh, the different, I guess, historic buildings, not necessarily the ones in our industrial district in West Concord Village, but like the red and white sort of, I don't know, classic buildings that we see a little bit in West Concord. And then there's also I think this original White Lady house that John was talking about. There used to be like all of those houses on Com Ave there were that same style of house, and that one that he pointed out is the only one left. Would we want like a mix of those different ideas coming through in the way MCI is developed, or do we have a preference? One of these ideas over the other?
I always feel like we don't have a clear, I mean, I'm sure Anne would say something if she were here.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there's a clear architectural design of West Concord still. I mean,
I
to me,
do.
it's a little,
I
you
feel like
do?
it definitely is. Absolutely.
Okay.
I actually lived in one of the cottages that was built for the prison, for a worker for the prison, but I definitely feel like there's a identification for them. And I study design, so
Okay, go ahead, Nicole, because I don't
I am
always see
not
it.
a licensed architect whatsoever by any, and I also study sociology, but I think there is a definite design towards West Concord. The reason why, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, it's so late for me. The building that is closest to Assabet that used to be industrial, that's apartments now. So there's a definition between industrial and original design. And I had to go over design elements in what was it? We had to do this, Susan, a little bit while. Oh, I can't remember. It was, or maybe it
Yeah,
was,
you had the chapter on.
I,
I
so that
remember
was,
Oh,
that.
right. Yeah, reviewing the design guidelines.
The
so
Yeah.
there
guidelines, yeah.
is, um, a differentiation between industrial design of what you can do with a former industrial building, which is why we have the building that is by the Assabet, whose name escapes me right now, and has Orange Theory, et cetera, et cetera, et
Oh,
cetera.
Brookside Square.
Side
Yeah.
common, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have something like Concord,
Outfitters.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even Deborah's or other places that are, well, whereas Deborah's is
Are you
more
saying those buildings that you just mentioned are defining of the,
of the architecture. So there's a whole section of architecture for West Concord in the, oh my God, I'm sorry. It's too late for me. I'm usually in
In that design document that we looked at a long time ago, are you saying that we should ask them to use that?
Exact, and so it tells you the different types of structure and how things interface with each other in the buildings and space.
So I think, yeah,
You're referring to the West Concord design guidelines, right?
yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we worked a lot on that over the last few years, so
Exactly.
we should absolutely be referencing it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And this is why I should be in bed right now.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we should look at those design guidelines and pick out what we would like to emphasize for MCI versus things that are less important to us. I think what I recall from the design guidelines is it gives every single kind of like type of architecture that you might find in West Concord Village and is like, it's a quirky place. And,
Yeah.
you know, just know that this is what's here and it doesn't necessarily point any developer in a certain direction. Maybe what we should do is look at how those different housing types or whatever are defined and then be specific about what we'd like more of.
Yeah, because I guess that's my point, Susan. I
Yeah.
don't get like a clear theme or approach. Like, do we, Concord Outfitters, that building is new. He just did a good job with it, right?
Yeah.
But it referenced the guidelines. That's why it's so good. And if we could develop different villages, if you want to have an industrial type village, of which is the history of West Concord, you can do that. You can have different housing groups within this big site, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe there's stuff within West Concord Village that we wouldn't want, like you said, Susan, we would not want replicated because it's just not consistent with
But maybe
the
some people
vision.
like it.
What's that?
Maybe some people like it.
They might, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean we want to advocate for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely all sort of agreed when something didn't look right, like that original thing that was going in at 166 Palm Ave. That just looked wrong. It was too big, it was too boxy, it was too shiny. Remember?
Yeah.
That's we
Like
looked at
it's a gigantic white cube.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
design guidelines to make sure that the development that was going on along Commonwealth would be congruent with the rest of the interface of the street.
Yeah. So
I guess this will come up soon because the Guitar Museum is
yeah.
gonna propose something so we can test
Right.
out our.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, we should look at that design guidelines doc and see what of the cornucopia of designs that are in there, we would like to nudge MCI Concord towards, as opposed to them picking, at will from any of the stuff that's mentioned in there. I'm sure like they're probably looking at other designs from other developments and stuff like that. So they're probably not going to be referencing our design guidelines, as their only resource. But I think we could use it and say, we're building on this and kind of like steering in a direction that the community is generally in favor of.
Yeah, I will say in the past, like the conversations have been kind of forceful with the developers looking,
Yeah.
it's been sort of like, you guys should reference and respect the design guidelines if you want public support. And I think that does carry weight. I mean, MCI is a little bit outside of the village, but I do think it's appropriate to say, these are it's in West Concord, these are West Concord design guidelines, and this is a
Yeah.
major development, but we think that you're gonna get a lot more public support if your designs are reflective of the design guidelines.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really good point. Support.
Has anyone seen the design of whatever they're proposing for the Guitar Museum? Because we haven't talked to them at all.
No.
And I don't think the
they should-
design guidelines have been shared with them.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, they can access them on the website, and I think anytime someone suggests a development in West Concord, Elizabeth or whoever on the planning board would provide them with the guidelines and show them where they're located on the website and stuff. But I think even in spite of developers receiving them, my experience has been they just kind of, their first suggestion is always something that doesn't seem to fit overly well, and then we have to begin the negotiation to finally get to a place where we can accept what they're proposing.
Well, I think too, if we're emphasizing, we don't want to, we would hope that whatever goes into MCI blends with what's already in West Concord and isn't so architecturally different that it looks like an entirely different, disconnected neighborhood.
Yeah.
And one way to make sure that they are a bit more connected is to look at the architecture along Commonwealth Yes, the White Lady, but some of the buildings that are in the center of West Concord as well, and that those two things really go together. You know, love it or hate it, Brookside Square, we're kind of used to it at this point, but that's very, very different kind of architecture than what the rest of West Concord has.
That's appropriate because it's once an industrial building. So it was specifically allowed to have that type of architecture because it was an industrial building.
Because the area was industrial, you mean? I mean, the building that
Yeah.
was there is gone, long gone.
Yeah.
I understand that, but what at that point it was considered an industrial building in the design guidelines.
Must have been part of the zoning. And frankly, I don't have any objection to it. But I think that when we think about wanting whatever gets built to complement or go with what already exists, that's a piece of an argument as to why the architecture should be similar to what already exists in West Concord, in the center of the town.
Yeah, I think for the connectivity, for the cohesiveness, for giving people that like sort of subconscious feel that this is all kind of part of one environment, I think it does need to be aligning with the architecture that's already in West Concord, but the best of the architecture, not necessarily some of the.
And maybe, again, I think we
ideal
talked
things.
about this in the past, maybe developers have found it hard to get through that document. And so I think we have some work to do to sort of do the kind of Reader's Digest version of
Mhm.
that with the key principles and the key best examples, so that they can look at something and easily understand what we're trying to communicate. Because like even I can't articulate it, and if we all can't articulate
Yeah.
it simply, that's not good.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we've gone over to a certain extent, and I think we probably all need to maybe do some homework on this. We've gone through all the different groupings that I made, and I think what we should do is if we want to make sure we weigh in on all these different aspects, we should probably write up something about each one of these things. And I think we could combine the connectivity and green and blue space ideas together because they're pretty intertwined. But we should write something up on each one of these items and do research if that's needed. Like I think a place where some research could help is let's see, where were we talking about Greenville? Was that in maybe pedestrian and bike access? Can't remember. If I can. Because we could provide like examples such as Greenville or other towns that we've seen that we would love MCI to emulate. And then also we can do some research related to the design guidelines and the different styles of construction. Oh, it was under housing.
Housing.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm thinking that maybe, how many of these are there here? 1, 2. There's 10 of these and there are like 8 of us, right? Would you guys be up for splitting these up amongst us to refine them now that we've talked about them as a group and can probably come up with, I don't know, I'm thinking it's like 3 sentences for each of these and then like examples if we can find them for what good looks like in our mind. And then I guess examples of what bad looks like if we have ideas on that too. I feel like we don't want to get, I don't know, too wordy, but we want to be able to convey these ideas.
Yeah, I think 3 sentences is a good idea.
And is this going into a document or on slides, or what are we ultimately doing with it?
That
again?
is a good question. And I might ask Wendy actually what she thinks the best way for us to communicate these ideas is. It seems like we should be mentioning these ideas during the 2 public meetings that MCI is having. But other than that, like, how should we be memorializing this and, like, I don't know, shopping it around and making it known?
So I would say be prepared to speak to the comments, and then you can just tell them at that time you'll submit something written as
Okay.
well. So I just don't know if you want to submit more details or just the 3 sentences at this point for each one. Depends on,
Yeah.
I mean, more is better. Putting it in writing is great because then you know they got your comments.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you're going to speak to this during public comments. So, each person that writes up a section
Yeah.
could make their own comments, or you put
Right.
it together as one document. I don't.
Yeah.
These sessions, by the way, they're going to be morning sessions and evening sessions
Okay.
on the 30th of April and then on the 28th of May. So
Okay.
there's going to be 4 different sessions.
Okay. Is it best for us to try to go to all of them for like maximum influence, like maybe divide and conquer, or
I
what do
don't
you
really
think?
know. I think as long as you go, I think that's important.
Okay.
I'm sure many people will have similar comments, but
Yeah. But we can say like this was the consensus of our committee and we've been,
yeah.
Studying and
Mhm.
making decisions in West Concord for years and we're
Yeah.
qualified to represent the community. Okay. So let's see. Does anyone have particular affinity for certain of these topics?
Well, I'd like to keep the green and blue space and the connectivity, if that's okay.
Totally, totally.
I would not like architectural design.
Nicole volunteered for that.
Yeah, Nicole.
I think I'm happy to do housing. And I
Okay.
don't know, does history play into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Although history is going to go maybe beyond that to a certain extent in terms of like retaining, I don't know, maybe buildings that would end up being used as possibly commercial spaces over at the MCI property. But if you're willing to do history and you would be able to expand the aperture of it to be a little bit more than just like historic home designs, I think that could be good.
I'm also interested in that if Barbara, if you're not.
Oh, all right. You want to take the housing piece? I mean, the
No, the history piece,
historical
not
piece?
the history piece, not
Yeah,
the housing
all right.
piece.
Okay, so Barb will take housing. Is Nicole taking architectural design?
Sure.
We assigned it to her.
Is that okay, Nicole?
And Susan, it looks like the impact on
I'll figure it out.
the last 4 there, I think fall into that category of like, impacts, like enablers. We want
Yeah.
all this, but we don't want to have a negative. We need to fix problems and not further exacerbate parking, schools,
Yeah,
traffic. It seems like that's a bunch together.
yeah. So impact on schools, parking, pedestrian, bike, and traffic, you think those go together pretty naturally?
I think they do, yeah.
Okay. Are you offering to do all of those? If not, like I can split
Well,
them.
maybe somebody could help me with those. We could do it. 2 people could do those 4.
Linda, I'd work with you.
Okay.
Okay. So pedestrian and bike. All right, so that's gonna be Allison and
Susan, are you gonna send these?
yes, the assignments, I will absolutely send them, yeah. Okay, so let's see, what do we not have? The commercial tax base. No one's done that one yet. Space.
Isn't that a little bit of a given with mixed use?
That's my Sokona's birthday.
I think that it is, but then it's also getting into like, well, what would we really want for like non-housing uses over at MCI, and I feel like a little bit more thinking and what's in the yes column and what's in the no column needs to happen there.
If you're single and you're remote,
I'm fine. I can take this commercial tax base one. I don't know, unless Greg, you're really into it. I can
can do
take
it.
this.
I can do it.
You want to do it? Okay.
Sure.
All right. Awesome.
I'm assuming you'll send out the Excel spreadsheet as well, Susan?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna maybe clean it up a little bit, then I'll send it out. Okay, so that means, let's see, maybe I do not have to do anything. Let's just see here.
And do you want a PowerPoint slide? Like, what do you want our output to be?
Let's see. I think like eventually we may need to turn this into a letter that gets addressed to the MCI Concord committee, and then their consultant would read it as well. So I wonder if maybe actually a Word doc format would be better.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter too much. We can still use images if we need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at dates for when I'm gonna have to pull up my work calendar. And I apologize for that, but I just want to get the calendar here. So we're aiming to be ready to talk about this stuff on, let's see, I think the 30th is what Wendy had just said. For some reason, I thought the 28th, but maybe it's actually the 28th of May and the 30th.
You said May 28th and April 30th.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but she said it the opposite way earlier.
I did,
Oh.
but I looked
Okay.
it up.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So is it April 30th, Wendy?
Yes, it is April
Okay.
30th and
Okay.
May 28th.
So let's be working on this and like say that we would want to be circulating our ideas for these to each other. Okay, no, wait. So open meeting law, you're gonna have to
Yeah,
send
you
it to
can't
me.
do that.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
They can send it to you.
Yeah, all right. So why don't you
It's all right.
send your stuff to me by if we say the 23rd, that gives us a whole week to work on it. If you send it to me on the 23rd, I will compile it and then send it out to everybody. I will promise you that I'll send it on the 24th so that we have it for a good number of days and can make adjustments to it so that it can be final by the 30th. Does that make sense for a schedule?
Yeah.
So 423, send your part to me, and then 424, you'll get a compilation back from me. And then let's see. Then I guess if you guys have edits, you also would need to send them to me.
Susan, and what you're looking for is the heading of what we're doing in 3 sentences. They're
Yeah.
bullets
Three.
or maybe, I don't know.
You said what I wrote down, you said 3 sentences for each, and then what
Yeah.
good looks like and what to avoid.
Yeah, so what good looks like and what to avoid could encompass like bullet points, I would say, underneath your 3 sentences if
Yeah.
your particular topic lends itself to that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's aim for that. And then, okay, so I'll give you the compilation on the 24th. If you could, by say the 28th, so it would give you the weekend, get me any input you have on the compilation. Like you can look through other people's sections and make sure that like the word choice looks okay to you, or that we're not saying something that you think we didn't agree on. And then we can have like a final version by the 29th. And then the first public meeting will be on the 30th. And then during the public meetings, I think it would be great if each person who wrote the different section that you're claiming would be able to get up and speak about that. Trying to think of how we would work that in a public meeting, because we'd want to have all of us kind of together delivering this message. And I don't know if it's going to be possible to keep everyone together in sequence, like up standing in a line by the microphone. I don't know, Wendy, do you have any advice on this?
You know, if you're all there and you have a quorum, you might have to call a meeting. I don't know, that might be worth a quick question to Kari.
Oh, well, we could then, split up so that we're not in danger
Yeah.
of having a quorum.
Yeah.
A quorum for us is 5 people, I think.
How many are you? 7?
I think we're 8 actually.
But that's with an associate. No, but how many are assigned? Aren't there 9 with 2 associates? So you're 7. I should look. I probably have already.
Oh,
Aren't we allowed to be there if we're not?
As long as you're not collaborating, but when you said let's get together,
right.
as long as
Okay.
you're not talking about business, but if you're just individually commenting, I think it's probably okay.
But when we're commenting, we're not saying I'm just commenting as a private
No, you're
resident.
speaking on behalf of the committee,
Yeah.
I would say that.
representing
Okay.
one aspect of the committee's work.
Okay.
Is the meeting on the 30th, is that a evening meeting or a morning meeting?
I think it's both. They're supposed to be
Oh,
setting
okay.
up 2.
On both days, okay.
Yeah.
They don't have any times established yet. Do they have, do you know if they
I
have those yet,
don't. All I
Wendy?
have is the date.
Yeah.
I'll go look. Let me just see if it might be on the town calendar. I'll see.
Well, I checked the MCI advisory board page.
Yeah.
And it didn't say any times or anything. It's not even on that
Yeah.
page right now.
Yeah, and it's not on the town calendar either.
Yeah.
I
It's
know
all
they're
right. They
creating
got a couple weeks.
Yeah, they're creating a website when yeah, I'll find out. I'll let you know.
So I guess, our plan will be that,
Wait, hold on, Susan. I learned where to go from the recording from the MCI committee. So I went to the website
Mhm.
and it says April 30th, Community Visioning Workshop #1, 3 to 5 p.m. and 6 to 9 p.m. at the CCHS cafeteria.
Wow.
Okay.
3
to 5 and what?
Wow,
And
6 to
6 to
9.
9.
3 to 5 and 6 to 9. And then just if you're caring about the next one, it's, we don't know. It says time TBD on May 28th.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's not morning.
No, apparently not. Wow.
Is anyone able to go to the 3 to 5 on that day? Just curious, because I know I can't. I could probably go to the 6 to 9, but not the 3 to 5.
Hold on a
Yeah,
second.
I can't do 3 to 5 on a work day, but I could do 6 to 9.
I could probably do 3 to 5. Do you have to go for the whole thing? I guess you do, huh?
Yeah, I think the idea is they're going to give some intro of the work that they've done and then collect feedback.
Hey guys, I just want to point out it's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Okay, well, so I think we can figure out who's going to what over email, and we don't have to all be at either of these upcoming, April 30th meetings. If one person is there, one person can represent our work and give a summary. So we can sort it out over email, but I think the idea is to have the cake baked, so to speak, so that any of us can deliver these messages in these public forums and beyond if we need to. And we'll have the physical document to send to MCI in the form of a letter that then becomes part of the public record. Okay, so I'll send everyone their assignments and the schedule for when things are due. And I really totally appreciate this. I'm going to clean up this spreadsheet here and then give an exact copy of it to each one of you. And then you can use that for inputs for what you write.
Thank you.
All good. Okay, so
Thank you.
you're welcome. Do we have any public comments? Great.
No one
Yeah.
stayed this long.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I know this was a late meeting, but I think this is really important for us to do. So seeing no further business, I adjourn our meeting and I will talk to you over email.